I'm Larry Farver, and let's queer up student and youth culture. New York school officials sue for the right to bully trans students. Parents and school board members from Long Island and Schenectady, New York, have sued Attorney General Letitia James and top state education officials, arguing that New York's efforts to protect transgender students amount to unconstitutional censorship. The lawsuit, filed by anti-trans Southeastern Legal Foundation, or SLF, challenges a May 8th letter from James and State Education Commissioner Betty Rosa. That letter instructed school leaders not to make or encourage comments that misgender transgendered students, question the legitimacy of their identities, or imply that including them in school activities endangers others. It cited state laws guaranteeing trans students access to appropriate facilities, protecting all students from discrimination, harassment, bullying, taunting, and intimidation. The guidance emphasized that free speech can coexist with reasonable viewpoint-neutral rules, preventing discriminatory or harassing comments. SLF argues the opposite, claiming the state is forcing school communities to self-censor. In a statement, SLF President Kim Hermann said, quote, "Letitia James' policies that say students cannot speak at their own school board meetings about the stress and problematic policies around accommodating trans athletes are anti-American and anti-constitutional," end quote. The case lands as trans youth across the country report worsening mental health amid rising anti-trans rhetoric. A 2025 Trevor Project study found that increased depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation tied to such political attacks. Wow, it's really surreal to hear this story. I was having some flashbacks while I was reviewing this for our broadcast tonight. And, going back to when I was growing up and going to a middle school guidance counselor seeking out help as a future out gay man, but at the time I wasn't out, and I was the only gay preteen in middle school. And I was told basically by the guidance counselor that they're going to be kids like you who get picked on. I was a football jock and basically picked on kids like you. And that was the end of our meeting, and I walked out. I was not polite. I wasn't disrespectful. But many years later, I remember telling my mother this, and she said, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "What would you have done at the time?" It was a very different time than we are in now. But to see this resurgence and justification is just appalling.
I mean, sorry, this is just another one of those at this point, I call it election campaign stunts, because these so-called legal foundations, they try to model themselves the right-wing equivalent of the ACLU